Hi, I'm Lawson and I'm here with Jason, and we're going to show you the new E85 compatible high flow fuel pump for the Polaris RZR XP Turbo. Our new E85 compatible high flow direct fit fuel pump for the Polaris RZR XP Turbo is designed for high performance applications. Each pump is individually tested to flow 245 liters per hour at 40 psi, but more importantly, it can flow 202 liters per hour or 53 gallons per hour at the RZR XP Turbo's 58 psi base pressure. What that means is that it'll support 640 horsepower at 58 psi and 482 horsepower at 22 psi of boost on gasoline. And unlike the factory pump, it'll work with M100 or methanol fuels too. The factory pump has a crack pressure of 80 psi, which doesn't give you a whole lot of wiggle room to deliver the necessary fuel for high boost applications. It's going to let go at 80 psi, and with gasoline, it's only going to support about 180 horsepower. Compare that to the AEM pump supplying 482 horsepower at the same boost level, and in addition to that, it has a crack pressure of 115 psi. Jason, you gonna show me how to install this thing?
I thought you read the instructions.
I looked at the pictures. Jason, I've read most of the instructions.
I would hope so.
Yeah, like most people, I've read most of the instructions. So this is the cover. We've got the back seat off, kind of done a little bit of a wipe down just to make sure some of this silt and dust isn't really around that area. And then we've got a clip back here you're gonna lift up on, and that's gonna pull the cover off to expose the fuel tank and the fuel pump assembly that rests on the top of the tank. And here we've got our harness, and we've got two lines for the RZR turbo pump, and then we've got this collar around here that we're gonna loosen to remove the assembly. But we've got to do a couple of things before we take this off. One thing you'll notice, let me disconnect the harness here, is that you've got an arrow here. So when you're uninstalling and installing, you want to mark the location of where this seats, because when you tighten it back up, this will be a good indication of when you've got this collar tightened down and you've got a secure seal from the assembly and the collar on the top of the pump that's holding it in. So we've got our trusty silver Sharpie here. We're going to line it up with this arrow, like so. The other thing we need to indicate is you'll see right here is a line on the top of the fuel pump hanger assembly. This aligns your fuel sending unit inside of the pump. So if you do not line this line up with these two lines on the outside here that are on the tank, you are going to get incorrect fuel level readings. So it's very, very important that you align this piece right here with these two lines outside the tank here when you reinstall the pump. So now we're going to take this off. Polaris makes a tool, which we don't have, that allows you to take this off. And we're guessing most of you aren't going to have that tool either. So we're going to get a little old school on this bad boy and do it the old-fashioned way. But before that, we're going to need to disconnect these clips that are holding these fuel lines to these nipples that come up from the assembly. And you'll see these clips, one of them runs horizontally here. So you want to loosen these gently without breaking it, which I have a tendency to do with stuff like this. I can't believe Jason's letting me do this. You want to loosen that clip there.
It should pop out one detent.
Whatever the hell a detent is. And then these ones, of course, go vertically. There we go. And I think I've detented them, one detent. Jason, would that be one detent?
This is actually 1.5 detent.
Oh, I over detented that one.
Really, we should be wearing gloves for this, too. So there it is.
Okay, cool. To get this collar off, we've got our marking. We're gonna go nice long flathead screwdriver, and I'm gonna seat that against one of these pieces here. I'm going to press it into the rag so I don't chip or break the plastic on it. We'll take our trusty mallet. We're just going to tap on this. There we go, until it starts to loosen up. Aha! Success! We got lucky. Obviously there's not a ton of fuel in the tank, but oftentimes what you'll want to do prior to installing this, which we should have shown you before that, would be to slide some rags underneath here when you disconnect these lines to pick up any drips. And as well, you're going to need some rags when you remove the hanger. So to remove the hanger, it's going to pull straight out, but keep in mind that you have a fuel level sender in the back here. So you're going to need to pull up and then come out at an angle so you don't damage that fuel level sender. You're also going to have the sock, which is your pre-filter, attached to the bottom as well. And you don't want to lose that in the tank pulling it out. And you've got, last but not least, and critically important, is this O-ring that goes in between the surface of the tank and the top of this hanger here. So make sure you hold on to this and you pull it out. So you come out like that. There's the sock, and there's the sending unit.
Hold it there and let the sock drain for a little bit too.
For sure. And here we go. We've got the factory fuel pump hanger with the factory pump in it and the factory sock. As you can see in the early part of our video, we will be replacing the stock pump with our high flow pump, and we provide a pre-filter. And we're also going to be replacing this fuel line right here, the factory fuel line, with our high performance fuel line. So let's go ahead and get those components and we'll put them on right now. So we've got the factory hanger assembly out, we've got the factory fuel pump installed, and the next thing we're going to want to do is remove this stock fuel line. The way that we're going to remove the stock fuel line is by taking our trusty razor blade and cutting along the ribs of the stock fuel nipple.
That's what she said.
And also the nipple of the pickup hose on the top. I'm going to take my time doing this, so we're going to cut away and we'll come right back once I've removed this. So we're going to cut from here to here. We're going to cut from here to here.
Up the river, not across.
And that's going to allow us to remove that. All right, I successfully got the hose off. I didn't damage anything and I didn't gash myself, and we're not going to the hospital, which is never bad, right? Winner. Okay, so the next things that we're going to need to do is remove the fuel pump sock. By the way, we mentioned it before and we'll mention it again. Use gloves when you do this, because my wife is going to be really unhappy with the way I smell when I get home tonight. We're also going to need to remove the two connectors for the power and the ground that go to the pump here. So first thing we'll do is remove the sock. You can kind of come in from any direction. What you want to do is wedge it. We're going to use a flathead screwdriver. What we don't recommend is coming in and utilizing the actual hanger assembly as a lever point. So we're going to come in from this side here and just kind of...
Don't break the hanger.
I'm not going to break the hanger.
He's gonna break the hanger.
I'm not going to break the hanger.
Did you hear that?
That wasn't the hanger. Off. And is the hanger broken?
No.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Sock is off. Didn't break the hanger and didn't use it as a moment area to break the hanger.
He's trying to sound like an engineer.
I know, it's because I hang out with these guys all day. They sound really cool. These come off really easy, and the nice thing is, what you'll notice is the blades on the terminals will match exactly the blades on ours. So it's impossible to put these on the wrong way, and we'll show you that once we get this one installed. So to take off this, I looked at the picture.
He read the instructions.
I looked at the picture. How's it come out? All right, now that we have the terminals off, you're going to want to remove the stock pump. So you're going to want to separate and lift, which is the opposite of my wife's bra. She's really going to be mad at me for saying that.
I am pretty pissed.
And then we're going to want to install this high flow fuel hose line
On the pump.
on the pump.
If you read the instructions, you would know this.
We supply every pump with covers for the inlets and the outlets so that nothing gets in them before, during packaging and shipping, and also when you take them out. So now is probably a good time to remove these. And we're going to go ahead and install the hose.
Probably going to need to loosen the clamps up a little bit.
You think they're tight?
I know they're tight.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
Are those in the instructions?
Use
Should we
some
lube?
lubricant.
Yeah, why don't we use a little bit of lube? Uh-oh. It's stuck. Okay, so we got the clamps on, ready to go. We're going to pop our fuel pump in, and then we're going to tighten up our clamps. And I'm going to rotate these to the outside to make that a little bit easier. So it goes in about the same way it comes out. You're going to want to seat it into the base here. Make sure that I did not read the instructions. What am I supposed to do?
So you got to push, stick it in the hole.
Okay. Push it
through a wee bit. Might be a little bit of an effort to do.
So to recap what Jason just did, he flared this out just a little bit to get a little bit of extra room back here. That allowed him to have enough clearance to go ahead and bend the pipe, or bend the hose onto the hanger assembly. So now we're going to tighten this up, and we'll go ahead and reconnect our power and ground and put our new pre-filter on, and we'll be ready to install this. So when you're tightening down, you want it to be snug. You also want to make sure you don't over tighten, because these are plastic components and you don't want to break them. Be very, very careful. If I didn't stress that before, we're good to go. While you're doing this, again, we'll reiterate, you're going to want to also use caution not to bend this arm. So be careful with this hanger assembly. If you bend this, it could very well affect your fuel level readings, and you're obviously not going to want that, especially if you're out on the trail. So the last thing we're going to do is install our pre-filter here, and that will go on large hole to large hole, and our little clip will go on to this nipple on the back of the fuel pump hanger. Just go ahead and wiggle that in, pop it down. Last thing you're going to want to do, you're going to want to make sure that you have your O-ring. You slide that up onto your hanger assembly so that when you install it back into the fuel tank, it forms a nice tight seal, and you get no fuel leakage when you're jumping off of dunes. Let's go put this in. All right, so we're back at the XP Turbo. We've got our gasket. We've got our new high flow fuel pump installed with the new pre-filter and hose with the clamps. Everything's snugged down, and we're going to slide it back in. So we want to go in the same way we came out, at an angle. Just move these fuel lines out of the way. Rotate that in to position. All right, I'm going to slide the collar back over the top. Now this will move around a little bit, so if you remember, we need to get this line right here to a line in between the two lines on the fuel tank before we completely snug it down. And we've got our indicator mark here for when we tighten the collar back down to tell us how tight we need to get it. So we'll go ahead and firmly press down and start rotating this collar. Okay, so we've got the collar tightened up. I'm going to go ahead and clip the harness back on. All right, the collar's tight, and we've re-clipped the harness back to this top enclosure here. So we're going to take and make sure that we line it up correctly, pin to pin. If you look inside here, there's some guides for you that show you how to mount the pins in. You've also got the clip here. This clip has a little tab on the connector, so that'll also give you a good indication of how you want to snap that together. And we're connected. We've got lines matching. We're going to go ahead now, and we're going to cycle on and off, both to test for leaks and to pre-prime the pump to get some gasoline in it before we start the RZR up. The final step, and perhaps one of the most gratifying ones of any installation, is putting all the cover plates back on. So we're going to go ahead and slide these two tabs underneath this metal bracket here. And there's a tab here. Just pop it on. All right. reminding me of some of the instructions that I forgot after I read them. The whole point of this was to prove that if I can put this pump in, anybody can put this fuel pump in. In addition to that, if you have high performance modifications, this is the last high flow fuel pump you'll ever need to install in your Polaris RZR XP Turbo. We hope you enjoyed watching. If you liked the video, go ahead and click the like. If you want some more content, please subscribe to the channel. Jason and I will be adding more content, some of it considerably more technical and less involved with me installing it in the future. Thanks for watching. To remove this fuel line, probably shouldn't use my middle finger for that. We both smell like gasoline. Jason's glasses are filthy, his shirt's a hot mess, and neither of us are wearing any pants.
Thank you for watching.